And our fire chief and our public works superintendent.
Danny can't make it. He just sent me an email.
Still working on a leak?
No, he's got the tech online support for some of the stuff going on at the plant. TJ, I think his name is.
Okay.
So they're working on stuff right now.
Yeah, and Ian, Fire Chief Ian, will not be able to make it as well. He's working today. I told him that there wasn't anything from my perspective that he needed to be there for, so he's not going to be at the meeting, but he's intending to come to the strategic planning priority session.
Okay. And Susanna is with us now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hi, Susanna.
Hi there.
There's nothing to be sorry about. You're on time.
That's right.
Great.
So are we ready to kick it off? Now I need to press record, don't I?
You do.
Okay, so I'm good to do that now.
From my perspective, you are.
And then Janice, after the meeting tomorrow morning, you can give me instructions on where to go from there.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so I'm pressing record. Record on this computer. Okay,
Recording.
recording.
I see it. Okay, welcome everybody to our regular board meeting for the month of January, including we have a couple of participants from landowner participants. So welcome to them as well. So let's formally get started with a call to order. And then our first item on our agenda, which would be to approve the agenda and whether there's any late additions to be proposed. So let's start there. Any thoughts on the agenda?
I have a couple of items. They're very small that I'd like to add.
Okay, can we hear them, please?
Sure. One is that we answer the landowner's letter that we all received regarding how we made the decision to rescind the water leak policy.
Okay, I have
And
that one already, so.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it on
Yeah.
the agenda, but that's great.
No,
Also-
it's just that I will deal with that off agenda. Just Gary and I are already working on getting information to answer that.
Right. I do have a suggestion that's public domain that I'd like to throw in at whatever point is appropriate.
Okay.
And my other is a very small item, which is to suggest that we invite Carol Molstat to our January 26th strategic planning meeting, obviously without voting, without her having any voting, but simply because she has significant background information on several of the topics that we will be discussing.
Let's deal with that under item 7 of the current agenda. Because that's about the strat planning session, right?
Yeah, and that's it.
Okay. Any Ted, Eve, anything else? I'll take those as no's. Silence is a no. Okay, motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, next item on the agenda is adoption of the regular board meeting minutes from December the 10th, which are in our package. So just any corrections, changes, comments on the agenda, or shall we move to adopt the minutes? Sorry, on the minutes, not the agenda.
I move that we adopt the minutes.
Was it agenda or minutes?
Minutes.
Second.
Any discussion, comments, or shall we just vote?
Let's vote.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we are through 2 items. Wow, we're just speeding through it, aren't we? Okay, the next item has a little bit more to it in that it's essentially the ratification of motions from our committee of the whole meeting on the 7th. And in the package, you also have a copy of those minutes, and Gary has shaded in those motions which need to be ratified that we voted in favor of at committee of the whole. So this is a ratification, although it does not say that we cannot have a discussion on them again, or that we need to vote exactly the same way we did last time, but it's just the process.
Thank you.
2021 minutes.
Trustee Kelger, that's correct. Moving forward, what I'd like to do is make best efforts to, for COW agendas and for regular board meeting agendas, have those completed, including the package, disseminated to you folks on the Friday before the, disseminated at least to the chair so I can talk to the chair if he has any issues or concerns. And then my objective would be to have the packages, the covering agenda emailed to all of the trustees and the staff on Monday prior to the Thursday COW or regular board meeting. And also at that time, the agenda package and the Zoom invite also go on the website on Monday.
That's really great.
Occasional late item, but that I think would be what I'm going to try to achieve in terms of timeframes.
And I did just check, and our January 7th COW meeting video is posted.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is on the table and seconded. If there is no further discussion, shall we vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Next motion, terms of reference for UBID board standing and select committees. And the motion that we endorsed at the time was that the draft terms of reference for UBID board standing and select committees be endorsed with the minor amendments and clarifications to section 3 and 6 of the draft terms of reference as noted at the meeting. So can I have a seconder for the motion?
Second.
Okay, I'll just make one discussion point before I pass it over to the rest of you. Is the 2 noted changes to section 3 and section 6 have been made. So as you read them now, they are standing. They are as we wished to approve them at that time. Okay. Any further discussion of these terms of reference? Okay. Shall we vote? All in favor of the motion as read? Say aye. Aye. Okay. And then there's a second part of that, which was another motion, which was that given the timing of the CVRD UBID conversion process, which is now underway, the board suspend all currently active standing committees pending the outcome of this process. So motions on the table or on the floor. Second.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Regarding committees,
Standing committees.
Chairman.
Yeah.
Standing committees. Talking with the fire chief the other day regarding the committee that is being held regarding fire truck information and purchase, etc. I think that was going to happen on the 28th of the month. So that is just the one thing to go through. It's a formality, basically. It's just to have a short meeting to culminate it. And then after that, that committee will probably be resolved.
You are the chair of that committee, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we're just to follow our normal sort of rules of order for meetings and take minutes, all those sorts of things. And you know, you and the committee will decide as to when the work is done. Is kind of how I would see it going, and how you know, it's a select committee, which is its purpose is to provide guidance and support the process of acquiring a new fire truck or deciding what fire truck to acquire. So we'll leave it to you as the chair and with your members to decide when that wraps up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, thanks to Trustee Haroldson for raising that. Yes, I'm aware that you folks have established, let's call it a select committee for the purpose of the apparatus. And I was talking to the fire chief last week about that when I was up. I'm aware that that process has kind of started. Ted, the chief advised me that the meeting is on Wednesday, the 27th, but we'll confirm that date. But I am aware that that process has started, and I would be recommending that these terms of reference not necessarily be retroactively applied to that particular committee, to kind of slow it down, that we press on with that one committee, that moving forward, if we want to establish other select committees for ad hoc one purpose items, that these terms of reference would apply.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion to suspend standing committees? Okay, and if there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, so item 7 from our minutes of Committee of the Whole. This is a bit longer one to read out. It's with respect to the conversion process. And whereas Trustee John France has submitted his resignation from the Board of Trustees of the Union Bay Improvement District effective December 4th, 2020, and whereas on December 10th, 2020, the board adopted a motion which has been communicated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs that the board supports the decision of the landowners in the recent referendum poll and is in favor of conversion to the Comox Valley Regional District local service areas as soon as practical, bracket projected to be July 1st, 2021. Therefore, be it resolved that notwithstanding the legislative letters patent and UBID election policy stipulations in regards to the holding of a by-election within a specified period of time in the event of a vacancy on the board, it be communicated to the ministry that, particularly given the timing of the conversion process, which is currently underway, the board, number 1, supports not holding a by-election to fill the current vacancy created by the resignation of Trustee France. 2, consents to operating with only 3 trustees upon the expiration of the current term of Trustee Ted Haroldson, which ends in April 2021. And 3, agrees that this change to operating with 3 trustees happen as of the 2021 UBID annual general meeting, which is scheduled for April 22nd, 2021. So that's the motion on the floor. Seconder, please.
Second.
Discussion. I'll start with, this has been communicated to the ministry, and they are working under the premise to prepare the work required to make changes to the letters patent, both to allow for the dissolution of the improvement district, but also to change those letters patent from 5 trustees to 3 trustees. That said, we still need to confirm this vote through this meeting and then communicate that as well to the ministry. So that's just some background on this, and I'll open it up for comment.
I have one comment. Mr. Chair, I think we all agreed at the last meeting that it would have been a waste of money to turn around and hold an election at this late date when the version is only months away from our AGM. And as far as I'm concerned, I think 3 trustees are capable of doing the business at hand. So I'm for that decision.
Thank you. Eve or Susanna, any further comment? Okay, so I have no further comment as well. I appreciate the support of the ministry in providing solutions which save our ratepayers certain amounts of money around the conduct of elections and those sorts of things. So if there are no further comments, then let's proceed to a vote, and all in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, so we have one further motion that the debate happened in camera, and then we had a rise and report when we came back to the public portion of the meeting to appoint a member of the public to the Conversion Working Committee. So the motion, appointment of a representative member from the UBID public to the CVRD/UBID Conversion Working Group, that Ms. Carol Molstad be appointed as a member of the UBID public to the CVRD/UBID Conversion Working Group. So motion's on the floor. Seconder, please.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so that takes us through the ratification of our previous motions. And now we fall next on our agenda to reports, and I will turn it over to our interim administrator, Gary Nason, to present the salient points from his report.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to read the report, or what has been your standard practice?
Our standard is that because we publish it in the package and anybody, including members of the public, can read the reports, is that you know, sort of free flow it, if you will, to point us towards the things of note that you would like to elaborate on a little bit, or just basically to make sure we understand and get the full gist of what's happening.
Okay.
So if there's nothing really meaty, then we can just say adopt the report. If you really want to raise some things, great.
No, I'll talk a little bit, Mr. Chairman, about and trustees, about the conversion process when we get to that item later on the agenda. I think my report is pretty self-explanatory. I just will give you a bit of an update on number 5 about the Southern Railway of Vancouver Island. This is the ENN Railway, and some outstanding unpaid invoices dating back to 2013. These relate to a couple of railway crossing agreements. They're quite standard on Vancouver Island. And they've been these agreements go back to, I think one was in 1994 and the other one was in 2011. For some reason, UBID did not receive invoices, my understanding, for 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. The railway company says that, well, we sent them out, but there's no record of us having received them. We did receive an invoice for the 2020, which has been paid. And we received an invoice for 2021, which is due and payable in early February. So Janice brought this to my attention, and the cumulative amount of these invoices going back to 2013 is over $6,000. And we have not budgeted for that this year. So I had some discussions with, it's the ENN, but it's actually the Southern Railway of Vancouver Island, SRY Rail Link. I had some discussions with them, And they have agreed that if we pay the 2021 invoice, which is a bit over $1,000, it's like $1,025. If we pay that one, they are in agreement to holding in deferment, I guess, having us defer payment on the 2013 to 19 invoices until next year. Because we have not budgeted for them for that amount, and of course our budget has been adopted, and we have no means to recover those amounts. So basically, unless instructed otherwise, we're proposing to pay the 2021 invoice, which is slightly over $1,000, in early February, and bring to the attention of the CVRD that there will be outstanding invoices in the amount of $5,300, a little over that, for 2013 to 19, which will have to be, raised and recovered and paid to the railway company early next year. So that's where that currently sits, Mr. Chairman.
Question from me would be, was this the potential for reducing the amount owing, given that these, I'll step back a little bit. My understanding of the situation is that this was reviewed with the railway in 2017 when a bundle of invoices was presented at that time for past years, and that the decision was made by the administration of the day to not pay those invoices because of their lateness. And that it then got left until now, right? And to me, it's onerous if indeed there was invoicing errors on the part of the supplier that we be asked to pay it all, that they not take some responsibility in it. And I'm just wondering if any of that discussion has happened.
Yes. At the end of the day, Janice, jump in, but my understanding is that we really can't determine how or why we never received these invoices. I've reviewed the agreements. They're certainly valid, and they're pretty common on Vancouver Island, these railway crossing agreements. The railway is not inclined, I think, to waive those charges. I have not committed in so many words that yes, on February 1st of next year, we will pay the outstanding amount of $5,300. They recognize that those will remain in arrears. So I guess we haven't finally, closed the box on those invoices. But what we have agreed is that we will pay 2021 at this point in time, because we have not budgeted for the remainder. Yeah. And I did raise this with Mr. Warren at the CVRD. So this has been brought to his attention, and I was interested in getting information from him on other crossing in the Comox Valley Regional District and what the practice has been, and is he aware of these, and has this been an issue? So at this point in time, we've agreed that we'll pay the 2021, but there's been no firm commitment given on these 7 years of past invoices.
Turn it over to the other trustees to comment on the discussion here. And I know I'm applying more of a private sector principle of there's almost a statute of limitations on how far back you can go to invoice.
I would like to comment, since I believe I'm the only remaining trustee who was in fact a trustee in 2017. As a trustee, I just want the public, our landowners, to know that this matter was not brought before the Board of Trustees, which to hear this now is actually quite troubling to me. Personally, I'm in favor of paying debts. However, I do believe this should have been brought forward to the board as a whole to be decided. It sounds like it was a unilateral decision made by our previous administrator and perhaps the chair, both of which that is in fact a unilateral decision. So pending more information from the CBRD regarding is this common practice and have invoices gone missing before, my feeling at the moment is I'm a person who honors my debts. I agree with the strategy of paying the February and deferring to next year because we are on a very, 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 very tight budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments?
Mr. Chair,
Ed, sure, go ahead.
I think I signed the check for this last one for the railroad. I think part of the problem with the ENN railroad situation going on there over the last number of years, probably why we did not receive those invoices because of the turmoil that was going on and the changing of the rail company from one company to the other. I can remember paying $12 a year for a line running under the ENN railroad for my water each year for many years. It's unfortunate this has happened. The best thing right now, I think, was paying off the latest invoice. Statute of limitations is 6 years. I don't know if there's going to be a change on that amount of money that's owing regarding the unpaid years or not. All I know is the statute of limitations is 6 years for the province. For a private company, I don't know. Maybe, as I say, the administrator can answer that one. So,
Thank
Not
you.
aware, Mr. Chairman. Good point. I'm not aware. I'm certainly prepared to look into that. And as again, I'm not suggesting we close the file on this. Clearly, I want to hear from the CVRD, get a little bit of better understanding of what the strategy has been, if there's been other agencies that have experienced this as well. But I do agree that I think it's necessary to pay the 2021. We did pay 2020, pay 2021, and let's do a little bit more due diligence in what our position should be on these 7 years worth of invoices that we presumably didn't receive.
I agree.
Eve, any comments?
I'm confused about one thing. You said 2017, our previous administrator dealt with this thing. What happened in 2017 again? And if they knew about them in 2017, what happened in 2018 and 2019?
They got paid.
Oh, I thought you didn't pay the 2018 and the 2019.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Those aren't the ones. Those are the ones that are still outgoing.
And
So,
as long as I've been around, they were never received until 2017, the prior invoices.
so you received them in 2017 for all, and then they decided not to pay them. Bizarre. Anyway, okay.
So I'm a little confused. Gary, you mentioned 18 and 19.
Yeah, this is why we need to do a little bit more due diligence, because the information they're giving me, and I asked her to, and Janice has been great to provide me with information, but I said, look, I want to receive from you, from your side of the table, this is the railway company, what we have paid for and what we haven't. They are showing 18 and 19 as being outstanding.
But Janice said they were paid, right?
Just looking up now.
They're
Let's-
indicating 2 invoices, one in 2018 in the amount of $102 is outstanding, and another one in 2019 for $105.42 is outstanding. So we have to do some diligence on this.
Those two are outstanding, but there's 2 bills. There's a $900 one and a $105 one.
So it looks like one was partially paid, but the other wasn't. So again, I'm not committing that we're going to be paying back that period of 2013 to 19 until we have more discussion and internal due diligence done.
Okay, so this is reporting from you. There's no decisions to be made by the board here. We've just had sort of some input back to you as to the thoughts are. There was no consensus from the board as to, you know, should we refuse to pay? In fact, I would probably lean the other way, that I got a tone that says we should pay our debts. And so I think this just becomes us turning it back to you. And if there's any sort of untoward or any unusual decision to be made, that it be brought back to us. Is that kind of where we leave it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think on all these issues, you know, we're going to discover issues like this that I think it's important to be transparent with the CVRD too, and bring these to their attention that, you know, we're dealing with this issue. We're going to try to resolve it, but heads up, it may be something that, you know, you may need to get involved with later on in the year post-conversion.
Okay. All right.
Just one small question. This smaller amount, which is still outstanding, is that interest? Like,
No, Janice, my understanding, there's two invoices, right? There's one for around $900.
Yep.
And then there's another one for a little over $100. Two separate crossings.
Correct.
oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, so if that is, thank you, Gary, for the report. So motion to adopt the report, the interim administrator's report.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, next report is the deputy administrator's report. So over to Janice.
It's all on here. You've got it. We did get the water bills into the mail yesterday. Should be finalizing the parcel tax bills and getting them out next week. Yeah, we gave up the cabin rental, so we've moved everything over from the cabin into the main office. So that will bring up some storage issues at some point when we no longer have that office. So it's just something to think about. That's about it.
Any questions for Janice?
Could you provide an update on the collection of outstanding, because I believe that's a work in process, the outstanding parcel taxes and water tolls? Or has that all been collected and completed?
It's ongoing. So it just sort of brings up the whole, Gary and I have been talking about the parcel tax and what our recourse is for non-payment. It's not, we don't have a lot of options. Correct, Gary? You're mute.
Mr. Chair, this is something that I want to talk about. It's an item on our strategic priorities list. It's one that I will be recommending that, in fact, we've already started work on it. It's one that I will be recommending to the fullest extent possible if we could clean this up before conversion. You know, water tolls, water rates are one thing because ultimately you have the hammer of shutting off the water. Parcel charges is a little bit more complex. I've asked, I'm reviewing the collections policy now. I mean, I'm unclear and we'll need to get a little bit of legal advice, I think, in terms of what our recourses are. It's not tax sale. It may be some sort of a lien on the property, a notice on the title, or small claims action. So basically, I want to talk about this a little bit on Tuesday at our strat planning session, but this is something that I will be recommending from our end that we pursue and get a good reconciliation of who's outstanding. both water tolls as well as parcel charges, and basically take whatever action we can take to collect these based on legal advice. The property charges for fire and for water and the property charges for fire and for street lighting, they're easier because they go on the property tax notice. If you're delinquent, basically, the province takes collection action, right? So want to talk about this on Tuesday, but yes, we have started investigating this process, and it's something that I'd like to see cleaned up before the end of conversion.
So again, I'm going to ask, I think it's really important that we're transparent on this matter. And will our strategic planning meeting be recorded and posted for the landowners?
Mr. Chair, yes. My plan is to kind of treat this similar to what we do for a cow or a regional, a regular board meeting. What I'd like to do is, and you see later on in the agenda, I've just put a scattergram list of topics that, from my perspective, I'd like to put on the table. I'll invite you to add more. But what I'd like to do is be in a position and to send out the agenda, which will be very short for that session, with the list of discussion items. Send that out to all of you on Friday, tomorrow, assuming that we're going to go ahead, and also send out the Zoom invite and get that posted on the website. And I have no issue, and I would recommend that it be a public open meeting. But, for strategic planning and priority setting sessions, really they're designed for the board and for staff to provide input. The public is free to observe, but it's typically, and this is of course subject to your direction, it's typically not a forum for the public to make presentations and provide, delegations. But yes, I'd like to put that on the website, send it out on Friday to you folks, and then get it up on the website prior to the meeting on Tuesday, so the public can observe and join the meeting.
Suzanne, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And it's really important. I understand it's not a typical, it's a working meeting, but however, given our past history regarding transparency, I feel very strongly that this is something that we need to be open and have the public be able to observe the process to ensure that we are following process and discussing and making decisions based on proper evidence and facts. That's why I asked. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions about the Deputy Administrator's report? If not, then can I have a motion to adopt the report?
I so move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next report is the Union Bay Fire Rescue December Fire Chief's report. Our fire chief is not present to present this. I think we can all sort of leaf through it. To look, it's been a reasonably quiet month, it seems like, with 4 calls that involved a total of 7.5 hours of on-call time. Usual sort of initiatives that seem to be happening. I'm just scanning down through again to Ted has already mentioned the committee for the replacement of the fire engine. Had a couple of people promoted to captain, and Sandy Pridmore and Adam Moyle. Any questions, any thoughts about the report? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the report, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and lastly, we have the Union Bay Public's water report. And so again, usual format. Speaks of what's happening with the water. Gary, I don't know, do you want to add any further context to this report? Because I know you've been speaking with the superintendent.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. When I was up there last week, Dan was great. He gave me a very thorough tour of the plant and associated infrastructure and his trailer. Yeah, it was great. I came out of there almost thinking that I was a qualified water operator. So definitely it was beneficial. One thing I just want to raise, because Dan has been communicating with Janice and I've shared a little bit of this with the chair. We are having some issues at the water treatment plant. And I can't get into a lot of technical detail because it's outside my pay grade, but we've been having a fairly high frequency of alarms going off and some issues with respect to the backwash for the 2 filters. And there's been a lot of back and forth and communications with AWC and with Ridgeline. There's an alarm system. It's very sophisticated. It's very electronic. A lot of, if not most of the programming is done off site, but we have been experiencing some issues, particularly I think in December and in January with respect to the number of alarms and the frequency of the alarms and issues with respect to the filters. And we've been incurring some overtime costs related to that. It's unfortunate that Dan couldn't join the meeting because I advised him that, we should bring this to the board's attention and just alert them to the fact that we're working on it. The plant is under warranty. Dan is working closely with their techs. And again, most of these resolutions and problems can and have been resolved remotely through the techs logging into the programs and the systems, but it's generating some concern on the part of all of us. And we'll keep you posted. It's a very technical issue, and it's really something that needs to be addressed by AWC, pursuant to the terms and conditions of the warranty for the plant.
What is AWC?
Janice, that's the contractor that built the plant. AWC, what does that stand for?
Ridgeline built the plant. AWC is they support the equipment for the plant.
That's out of Langley.
Yes.
Yeah, they supplied the filter, isn't that correct?
I think they supplied most of the equipment. They seem to be the ones to contact for support.
Yeah, and their technicians are the ones that have the qualifications and the knowledge to basically log into the programs and the systems for the plant and rectify these issues. Again, it's very high tech, and most of the work can be done remotely and has been up to now. But we're still tending to have what I understand to be an unusual frequency of alarms and call volumes related to the plant. The plant hasn't shut down. It's still producing water. Quality and turbidity is not an issue, but it's somewhat aggravating. And maybe these are, kinks that need to be worked out of a new system. So we're not there yet, but I think it's important for the board to be aware that we're having some issues.
So I have a question and it would be for our superintendent, who sounds like was unable to attend. today. And I'm hoping that these will the super be attending our strategic meeting.
Sorry, you cut out there, Susanna, a bit.
I do have some questions which I'd like to ask now. It's unfortunate the superintendent is not here. And I asked, is he going to be attending the strategic meeting?
That he has been invited, and that is the intention.
Yeah, he did
Okay.
say he was coming, but if some alarms go off for the plant, he has to be there. So it's really
Right, so
an issue.
that's why I'm going
So
to.
perhaps if you have questions, Susanna, we could, follow chain and you could document them. We could get them to Gary and he could present them to
I
our
would like
superintendent.
I would like to state my question. Is that all right?
Sure.
Thank you. I want to know what the actual measured area is inside the current fence, the fence which surrounds our existing water treatment plant. So that's question number one. Question number two is a question or a request for information which was made by the board several months ago. And that was to provide us with an ongoing statistics regarding the volume, weight, and cost of the sludge removal. And I'm not asking this to create more work. I'm asking because it is only with statistics and evidence that we can base our budgets going forward to accurately represent what we're paying. I would also like, and this would be valuable and important information for our strategic planning meeting. I see the stats on the report, but the stats for sludge removal are not there. I would also like a comparison of the costs of chemicals, etc., for 2019 and 2020 to see, so that we can make actual decisions based on actual costs, so that we're not under budgeting what the operation of the water treatment plant is. I'm concerned that I thought this request for information was made previously, and I would really like our reports to be a little more to contain information that is evidence-based and something that we can make good decisions based. I'm sorry, I'm not making myself clear. I would like to know what the cost has been for the sludge removal, including volume and weight of it from May to present date. And if that could be available for the planning meeting, that would be great, as well as the area, the actual area contained within the fence. Is it 4 acres or is it less?
Or more simply stated, what's the area?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a comment on the sludge removal. That is one of the topics that actually I did put on the strat planning session. I had Dan and I talked about this one when I was up there. He does have, he threw out numbers in terms of what it's currently costing to have that sludge trucked out. And the intent is that he be participating in the strategic planning session. I indicated to him that this was an item on the agenda. So hoping that we don't have any operational issues that will permit him to attend, because he will be in a position to provide information on that sludge issue. In terms of the area, we'll have to do a little bit of digging on that, but yeah, okay, thanks for the heads up.
The one thing I do want to note on this report, just for a matter of recognizing our staff, is under training and certification that we note that Dan McGill passed his water treatment operator level 2, and that Kate passed her water distribution 1. And so now we have 2 fully certified level 2 techs at the plant. And we have a further certified resource for our distribution system. So I'd like to say congratulations and thank you to both of them for their diligence in that. So if there's any further comments, questions?
One other question regarding, we're talking about regarding the sludge that's removed. Was there ever tenders put out regarding the removal of that sludge between septic companies that are in the area?
I do not know the answer to that question.
I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Chair, sorry.
Maybe Dan can enlighten us on that. I'm not sure myself. I can't recollect that there was ever a tender bid put out for the person to remove that sludge, or whatever companies were, put in for a bid or whatever to get the best price. I don't think that was ever done. I can't recollect it. Susanna, can you ever recollect it? I can't.
No, I don't believe so either. I think Eve has a question.
Well, let's finish off with this. Janice, are you aware of any tender process? Or?
No, but I do know, do you remember, I can't remember how many meetings ago when you had asked what the monthly cost of operating the water treatment plant was? And we calculated that did include the sludge removal. So we have budgeted for the sludge removal.
Okay.
We had that number.
All right, so the answer is we do not believe there's been a tender process for sludge removal. Okay.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Sorry, Eve, was there a question from you?
Just the sludge removal, Danny doesn't pay the invoices, does he? Wouldn't Janice or Gary know how much?
They're in front of me right now. I'm looking at them, and it is the costs align with what we calculated when we calculated the monthly cost of running the plant. So it's like between $1,000 and $1,500 a month to remove the sludge.
So that figure, Janice, thank you for giving that to us, is quite different from what was told to us in the summer as a monthly fee. And that's exactly why I'm asking that this be included in the water superintendent's report. What my recollection was, we were told it was around 700 or 800 a month. I believe I said 1,000 a month, and Chairman Rowe, quite rightly, corrected me. So we need that information on a regular basis. For one reason, sludge levels we don't know. We're in the first year of operating a water treatment plant. So this is all new to everyone. We don't know if there's a fluctuation dependent on the time of year. All of those things we have no control over, but we need to know in order to plan effectively for the future.
And I'd like to leave this till our planning session, because that's, where we, with no action, then there's no control, right? We just know that sludge is costing us a certain amount, but it is on the agenda to be prioritized as to whether it's one of the projects we will take on or not in the remaining months that we have as a board, right? So that's the intent, and I'll leave it till then. We'll talk about the intent of the strategic planning session. But it is along those lines of saying, where are we going to spend our time given the work that we have on our plates? Okay, so let's leave it till both that discussion, but also until next Tuesday when we can tackle some of these issues and decide how we're going to approach them. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, any further comments? May I have a motion to adopt the Public Works report then?
I so move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And so the next things that were in the package were related to the conversion process, but I think I'm going to, sorry, I'll check back to the agenda. We're finished with reports. There are no business items that are new that we haven't touched on before, so we'll move on to the unfinished business. First item there is the conversion process, verbal status update to be given. There were 3 of us in attendance at the last meeting, but Gary, do you want to start?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, thanks very much. I did attach to the agenda, just for everyone's information, acknowledgement correspondence from the ministry responding to our letter just before Christmas, advising the ministry that the board had adopted a motion indicating support for conversion. The ministry has also received the previous motion that you just ratified from Committee of the Whole about going down to 3 trustees. So they're totally up to speed in terms of where we're at. Just for the information, I guess, of the trustees, but also any of the public listening in, the conversion process has certainly started. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned the first meeting of the working group that was held on January the 11th. And subsequent to that, I met with Mr. Warren on January 14th in the flesh at the CVRD office, of course, with appropriately masked and gowned and hand washed and the whole 9 yards. We had a good conversation about conversion. The CVRD has established kind of 7 topic areas where they're going to be working with the UBID. Those 7 areas are on legislative services, HR, water, street lighting, fire, finance, and communications. And they've established a point of contact, a staff point of contact in each of those areas to work with staff, and in some cases, the chair or a trustee member of the working group on each of these issues as we move forward. They've struck a HR committee comprising UBID, the CVRD, and CUPE to discuss HR collective agreement related issues. The first meeting of that group is on January 28th. And there will be rollout meetings of other little subcommittees covering each of these 7 areas. They've put out a draft communications plan. We just got that yesterday, the chair and I did circulate it to Trustee Kelger and to Carol Molstad for any comments. It's in draft. It's a communication plan which talks about various tools that they would be putting in place to keep both CVRD residents and certainly most particularly UBID residents in the loop. They're talking of things like video, newsletters, community updates, subject to COVID, of course, an open house, either online or face-to-face, developing a web page, a primary point of contact, 24/7 number, those types of things, and some social media stuff. So that has been circulated to us for just some preliminary comment. The chair and I talked about it today. I did send it out to Trustee Kelger and to Carol. I've heard from Carol. Any comments would be welcome because I will be talking to the Deputy CAO, James Warren, tomorrow. And so that's about it. I'm just proposing that we put a standard agenda item on all our COW and regular board meetings. Every 2 weeks, you'll see this as a standing item. There may be a written report. If not, there'll be just a verbal update where we're at. And the next meeting of the conversion working group is scheduled, now confirmed, for February 9th. February 9th. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you for the update. The only thing I would add would be with respect to the communication plan. Feels to me like there might be just some fine tuning or some nuancing of how the messages may be delivered. And I'd love feedback from the board on this, in the sense that I have a sense that our landowners would like us as the board to be out front on this and to be communicating and to have the voice of UBID perhaps be a half a step ahead of the voice of CBRD, but we need to be in lockstep as we talk. And that if the board was in agreement with that, then we, through the working group, we can, fine tune this plan to say that UBID residents will believe that it's the UBID board that is leading the communication or being very prominent in the communications. I'm couching my words a little bit because CVRD is very, very important to this process, and they are driving a lot of the work that they need in terms of how the services and all of the details get converted. But I think our landowners want to know that we are very supportive and intimately involved in the process. So I'd love feedback on, if it were to be 100% communicated by CVRD, would that be acceptable? If it were to be 100% communicated by UBID, would that be acceptable? What's the right balance? I leave it open for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I think you answered the question already, balance between both. And again, in lockstep between the regional district and Union Bay so that we're on the same page. That's relatively important for any of the trustees if they're asked questions.
Okay, thank you. Eve or Susanna, any thoughts on it?
I'm yielding to Eve.
I guess you mean putting out more as UBID for UBID. You mean, Ian, putting more communication out than our normal landowners update?
Or, if there's more communication that is coming as a result of conversion, which there will be, such as videos and newsletters and those sorts of things. How do they get signed and labeled? Like, who's the communicator? Those sorts of questions. I don't think it affects the information that gets communicated. It's just, is there a sensitivity within our base that says we want to make sure you guys are on it? We don't want to feel like this is CVRD driving the process. I don't know. Maybe I am being too sensitive to that, so I'm just asking for feedback. Or is it a tempest in a teapot?
Well, I think that our normal apparatus we use for communicating should be continued to be used, like the websites and the newsletters, and keep people apprised of what's going on as a board. And then the CVRD can do as they choose with the advice of the working group. So a balance, like Ted said, yeah. Not one or the other.
Sorry, Eve, are you done?
Yeah.
I certainly feel it's been a joint effort. And speaking from being on the working committee as well as a landowner reading the information that's coming forward, I don't have any sense, but that's why I wanted to see what Ted or Eve had to say. I don't have any sense from landowners that it is somehow unfairly weighted from the CVRD or Union Bay. I think it's been incredibly balanced, and so I support moving forward, as Ted said, in a balanced, like a really we're equal partners here, CVRD and Union Bay.
I don't sense any issues yet either. And my comments are really about, let's make sure that we don't manufacture any, trip ourselves up as well, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah. Okay, I appreciate the input. Just it's been something that's on my mind, and I just wanted to represent, as we speak, the entire board's opinion on it. Okay, so that is item A. Any further comment on the conversion process, or should we move on to the next item?
Mr. Chairman, I have a call in to Mr. Warren tomorrow at 10 to talk about a couple of things, and this has been informative for me, so I'll communicate to him the board's thoughts on the communication piece. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so item B under unfinished business is the Upper Island Developments rezoning application referral, and we have further information on that I will turn the floor over to Gary Nason again.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The board has seen this rezoning application referral. You saw it in December. At the same time, I presented 2 referrals for Union Bay Estates subdivisions, proposed subdivisions. We dealt with the Union Bay Estates subdivisions because we had comments from Coors and Associates Engineering. They weren't able to put together their comments in time for that meeting just before Christmas. So I asked Mr. Dahl, our engineering consultant, to provide some comments in January that we could forward back to the Cowichan Valley Regional District because they are processing this rezoning application from Upper Island Developments. And the last time I spoke with their planner, they were proposing to introduce a rezoning bylaw and take it to public hearing in the first quarter of this year. So Mr. Dahl has prepared a letter, which is in your package, and done a similar kind of high-level analysis to what he did for Union Bay Estates. You'll recall from December that this is a fairly significant application. Basically, Upper Island Developments has applied to rezone a 55-hectare parcel. They have the intention of subdividing the parcel into 114 individual residential lots, with the smallest ranging in the smallest size being 0.336 hectares. This would allow for a minimum lot area of, as I say, 0.36 hectares with a maximum density of 2 dwelling units per lot. And the second dwelling unit could be a secondary suite, a carriage house, or a secondary house of some way, shape, or form. And if approved, and there's full build out, this rezoning could allow for up to a maximum density of 228 dwelling units when fully developed. And obviously it would be phased in over time. The intention of the applicant is to connect each lot to Union Bay's water distribution system. And they have not provided design details relating to the proposed water system. They haven't provided any information on that. So Mr. Dahl has looked at this high-level review, kind of preliminary comments that we can send back to CVRD. He's focusing on the water supply and distribution system aspects. I mean, he's come to several conclusions, which I think are noteworthy and not surprising. The 92-meter pressure zone, which would service this application, doesn't provide sufficient water pressure to service the higher elevation areas of the property. That's one point. Extensions of the existing water mains would be required to service a development of this size. Fire flows needed for the proposed development may necessitate improvements to the existing water distribution system. Design maximum day demands may require increasing the water treatment plant's capacity. And design maximum day demands may require increasing the available treated water storage within the distribution system. So he's made some recommendations that the applicant should be, at the appropriate time, be required to provide, a fairly extensive list of detailed technical information. And what I would recommend is similar to what I recommended for Union Bay Estates, is that the board review this correspondence. Certainly feel free to add any other comments of a technical or a political nature. The CVRD has asked for Union Bay's comments. It's totally appropriate for us to send appropriate comments back to them. I would recommend that we send Mr. Coor's letter, which will alert them to the fairly substantive pieces of information that would be needed, and the potential upgrades which would be required to our water supply and distribution system. So I would recommend that we deal with this as quickly as possible, hopefully this evening. My recommendation would be to receive the letter and direct that it be forwarded back to the CVRD. I've spoken to their planner. He's graciously said, yeah, you're beyond the deadline, but comments welcome. I told him that I'd make best efforts to get comments back to him by certainly the end of the month, so that they can take something to the regional board. And assuming their plans haven't changed, they would like to move forward with introducing a rezoning bylaw and sending it to public hearing probably in the spring. Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Ian, we can't hear you.
Unmuting is much more successful. So I'll open it up to the board for comments. I have a couple that I'll make at the end, but I'll ask starting left to right. Left to right is Eve. Do you have any comments?
Not at the moment.
Ted, do you have any comments?
I think we should follow what Mr. Nathan said regarding this subject.
Okay. Susanna, any comments?
I also concur with Mr. Nason's recommendations. I do have one question, and that is, will this engineering report, which, by the way, thank you for initiating that. It's a very thorough analysis. Will that be posted on our website? And if the answer is no, I would strongly urge that it be posted on our website.
Mr. Chair, it was in the agenda package, which has been posted on the website.
Susanna, is that clear enough for you? Is that
a yes?
transparent? It already is on the website now as a part of this agenda package, but it's not separately posted.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
It used to be that so it's already, okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's just
Available.
It's bundled in with everything in this agenda package.
Okay.
Yeah. My only comments are, and I may be stating the obvious for part of this, right, is that where the report indicates that infrastructure will be required to service these parcels, that the increased infrastructure cost would be at the cost of the developer, not at
That's
UBID's
right.
cost. And so I would want to make sure that our comments are clear on that. Having said that, one of the pieces of infrastructure, or two of the pieces, are plant related shared infrastructure, in that this may push us past the capacity of our filter and the capacity of our storage tank. If this were the only development going on, and then I think we could continue to say, hey, you're causing us to upgrade our infrastructure, and ask for that. However, we also have other developments underway where there is water infrastructure agreements in place, and parts of those agreements address future upgrades. Given that we now have 2 developments going on, is there any requirement for us to modify infrastructure agreements or to create a different approach to funding expansions of a water plant by developers? I don't know if that made sense or not. In other words, our water infrastructure agreement says Union Bay Estates pays for the next filter.
Mr. Chair, our first water agreement and so on for Union Bay Estates, I think if you have another developer coming in that's also going to be doing a fairly large development, that has to be another separate agreement, because it could mean that there could be a conflict between these developers, who's paying for what.
Exactly.
So I think there has to be a separate agreement for the other developer, so that if they go on, they have to turn around and pay for what they're doing.
Yeah, that's I think essentially correct, and a good point. There's a couple of other things that probably you would want to be doing. Keep in mind that this one is a bit different than Union Bay Estates, because this is a rezoning application, so it's considerably earlier in the process, and it's not unusual for there to be less detail in terms of the specifics of the application. It's a rezoning, so it's fairly early in the process, whereas Union Bay Estates was a subdivision application, which then triggers our subdivision bylaw and things like that. So Trustee Harrelson's made a good point. Yeah, I think you'd be down the road wanting to negotiate some sort of a development agreement. Keep in mind, at that point in time, we'd be, it would be the CVRD, so it would be kind of incorporated under their kind of structures and their subdivision bylaws. But you'd also want to be looking at, and if conversion wasn't happening, I'd be wanting to talk to the board about the need to update our capital expenditure charges. That hasn't been done for quite some time. That's a fairly significant exercise. You'd want to be doing that. You'd want to be updating our subdivision bylaw, getting that up to speed, so that when these applications are ready to go, that we have good policies and financial mechanisms and land use policies and subdivision bylaws in effect.
I agree.
So as long as our comments do reflect that, and as we get back, that says that there will be negotiations required around the expansion of the water treatment plant.
Can I just clarify one statement, Gary? You just said that the Upper Island application, which is behind, not as far as long, would probably become a live issue when we are under the CVRD, which is probably true. And then you said, and therefore it would fall under the CVRD subdivision bylaw. My understanding is that's not the case, that our union, this is very confusing to me.
Yes, and I don't exactly have total clarity either, to be honest. And this is something that one of those 7 key areas for conversion is planning. And certainly we're going to have to share our subdivision bylaw with the CVRD, including the any legal advice we have in regards to what work needs to be done on it, so that the CVRD is properly informed. And to be honest, I'm not 100% clear, and nor do I think that my counterpart in the CVRD is 100% clear to what extent Union Bay's current subdivision bylaw would still remain in effect when conversion finally takes place and Union Bay Improvement District is dissolved, but to what extent that subdivision bylaw, which pertains to Union Bay, would still be in effect and valid for our piece of the electoral area A, if you understand what I'm saying. And that needs to be thoroughly fleshed out. And that'll be a significant item on the planning working group.
And if I could, thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one who's confused. But I just want to add the Union Bay Estates one, which is further along. Now, we have known for quite some time that we need to update our subdivision bylaw. I just want to, and it is, I reread the 2017 water agreement, and it states in there quite clearly that subdivision bylaws are updated. I just want to be clear, and in fairness to the developer understand as well that we are in the process of updating our subdivision bylaw and the CECs. And I want some assurance that it's the updated one that will be the one that's followed, not our very old one. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I think I do. And at this point in time, and again, this advice could be subject to change. At this point in time, I'll say this, that in my view, if conversion was not happening, wasn't on the table, one of the things that I would be strongly recommending we do now is to start a process to update our CECs, do some 5-year capital planning, which actually has to be done first. You put that piece in place first, and then you do you update your CECs, but also be updating our subdivision bylaw. If there's any issues with that, clean that up, but also update it to reflect newer technology and the passage of time. I would be recommending we treat that as a priority, and we'd be doing that because of these applications which are sitting out there. I don't think they're going to be happening anytime soon. This one we're talking about is in the early stages. I'd be recommending that. The discussion I want to have with the CVRD, which those of you on the working group are going to be part and parcel of, is making them aware of our subdivision bylaw, what's in it, the need for updating, so that they can do an analysis of how that fits into their land use planning scheme, and we sort out questions of, okay, is that document still going to be valid after conversion? Or is it subsumed into the Cowichan Valley Regional District's land use policies and bylaws, if you understand what I'm saying? I don't honestly know the full answer to that at this point in time, but it's something that's going to have to be talked about very early in the conversion process. And I'm sure you're going to be part of that discussion, as early as our next meeting.
Oh, I was going to see Mr. Nason. Let's hope it's the Comox Valley, not the Cowichan Valley.
Well, I apologize. I do that all the time. And that's because I'm in Victoria and they're just over the Malahat, and I've done a little bit of work for Cowichan Valley. So,
you're 100 miles short getting here.
I know. I do that all the time.
Okay.
I do believe that there's further discussion to be had around the subdivision bylaw with respect to our planning session as well. And that's the next agenda item when we get there.
Right.
And just to make sure that we've got an agenda and a process for that meeting. So any further comments on the Upper Island Development rezoning application referral? Otherwise I would suggest that we've given our interim administrator our guidance, and would leave it to him to pass our comments on. Any other thoughts?
Do we need a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think a motion's in order, just to receive this information and request that it be forwarded to the Cowichan, to the Comox Valley Regional District for.
Good boy.
Along
Thank
with,
you.
along with comments.
I so move.
Second.
And when you say, Gary, along with comments, that would be along with the comments, including the board's comments?
Yeah, I'll
Absolutely.
certainly integrate those into a letter.
Fantastic. Okay, so moved. All in favor, say aye.
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 And thank you for the hard work.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, item C under unfinished business is the proposed UBID Board Senior Staff Strategic Planning Priorities Setting Session to be held on Tuesday, January 26th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And then note a suggested list of potential strategic priorities for discussion and prioritization at the session is attached. Board members are encouraged to bring forward any additional items to consider warrant discussion at the session. And I would propose that for our debate here today that we don't dive into the items on the list. Let's just first off start with, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? And then secondly, do we have a complete list of things that need to be discussed at that time? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And so if I were to start with, how this came to be is a discussion between Gary and I about the amount of work that has to get done between now and July 1st. And if we put that work into three buckets, they would be the day-to-day operation of the improvement district that needs to happen, the management of the water system, the management of the fire department, the billing, and all of the great work Janice's team does. That remains number one. We have a business to run, or an improvement district to run. The second thing that comes along in my mind priority-wise is we need to devote sufficient resources to making sure conversion happens properly and that CVRD has all of the information and processes are interlocked. And then thirdly, we have these strategic priorities that in the time remaining, we will work from the top of that list towards the bottom, knowing we won't get to the bottom. That would be the way I would phrase it. So that the purpose of the meeting would be to say, what are our most pressing strategic items such that Gary has a clear idea of where to spend his time first. So I'll leave it there and turn it over to others to see if you have a different thought, a different concept, but that's the way this has been shaped in my mind. Suzanne, I'll start. We'll go right to left this time. Do you have any thoughts or comments, or do you want to defer?
Well, I very much appreciate the running list. It makes it come out of my head and onto paper, so I'm not quite as stressed out. We clearly have a lot to cover. My personal prioritizing would be based on finances, meaning what is going to bring money into the improvement district, not because we're trying to get rich, but because we have expenses to cover. And by that I mean the CECs, the subdivision, as well as the parcel B. So in my mind, anything that has a financial amount to it or a potential is something that we should focus on.
From the perspective of the way I sort of laid out the work items that we have, are you in agreement that that's agreement or not, that it's daily operations first, conversion second, priorities third? Does that make sense to you?
I would, because conversion, I would actually put conversion third. I obviously daily operations and then policy and conversion third. And I only say that not because it's not important, but because we have the CVRD who's doing a considerable amount of work on that as well. I feel we are holding the ball in terms of what really pertains only and uniquely to Union Bay Improvement District.
From a board level, I agree with that. From a staff level, there is going to be a lot of conversion work that has to be done.
Okay.
There's going to be, you know, back and forth of a connection between, for example, the CVRD fire owner and Chief Ham. And, you know, in terms of bylaws and legislation, Gary will be involved in that. And in each of those 7 areas that have been identified, there's going to be a staff member associated with it to answer questions and provide information. So I think it is going to occupy a fair amount of our staff's time as well, if that makes sense.
If I still have the floor, I agree with what you're saying, and somehow we have to do it all, right? Or do the best that we can. The one other item besides finances would be public safety, and that's in relation to the dam, the review of our dam. That has been pushed down the line for quite some time. So that's how I rank priorities: public safety, finances.
Okay.
I yield to my colleagues.
Eve, any
I've watched
thoughts?
too much
Oh, sorry,
American.
Ted,
Sorry.
you're to the left on my screen. So Ted, any thoughts?
Well, I think again, like Hannah said, you've got a lot of ground to cover. It's a short period of time in which you have to do this, and by compounding it with other things might get in the way. It's, I think you have to go for the basics, and the CVRD is going to be taking over a lot of these things regardless of Union Bay, and regarding the dam and everything else, I'm sure that they'll be looking into it themselves. But I think the best thing the improvement district can do is to be able to turn around and turn it over with the proper information the regional district needs to be able to operate Union Bay in a proper manner. Well, I think you guys got your hands full. That's it.
Your hands are full until April, Ted.
I know. I know.
Eve, any thoughts?
So with your 3 buckets, I guess day-to-day operations is obvious, but the conversion, you're pretty sure that's going to take a lot of time for the staff, and that you mean by Gary and Janice, and not the public works staff, or what?
Gary, can I turn it over to you for some context here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm still trying to get a handle on, it's early days, how much administrative kind of dog work, grinded out administrative work is going to be entailed in the conversion process. They have those 7 functional areas. No question, it's going to consume, you know, a fairly significant, potentially, amount of staff time, and I'm speaking of myself and Janice, Ian, Ham, and Dan. I think, you know, there's going to be a fair amount of administrative work and time commitments and meetings that they're going to need with their CVRD counterparts. What I'm trying to get my head around is how much of that, you know, what's it going to be like for the next 6 months until we get there, and how much extra capacity can we have to, you know, address some of these things that, you know, I would recommend be addressing. And I've already spoken to you, I think, and let the cat out of the bag about a few things that I think, hoping that we will have capacity to address. I've mentioned a couple of them already. One is the, the delinquent and arrears, parcel charges, trying to get that cleaned up, dealing with the parcel Bs, some issues with respect to the fire apparatus. I think that momentum should keep going, and several issues related to the treatment plant as well. But again, some of those can be done a little bit more independently of the CVRD. Others, will have to involve the CRD to some extent. For
Okay.
example, the subdivision bylaw.
Can I carry on with my comment?
You bet.
Okay, thanks, Gary. So are you going to be expected to be in these committee meetings, these 7 committee meetings with the CVRD?
No, what I've indicated, what I've told James is that, look, Janice is pretty up to speed on the financial issues. She can be the principal point of staff contact on financial issues. Everyone knows to keep me informed. I've said that Dan should be the principal contact on water, and Ian Ham certainly for fire. Some of those other areas, communication, that can fall to me perhaps in the chair. Street lighting may fall more to Dan, and some of the legislative services stuff is going to fall to me in a combination of myself and Janice. So, I don't want to be the principal point of contact when we've got capable people in the organization that can speak probably more effectively to their counterparts in CVRD than I can.
Okay.
But the issue is capacity. How much time is conversion just going to take in and of itself?
Okay, thanks. So the other question is, this meeting on Tuesday, is it to prioritize, or is it to, or what is the meeting on Tuesday's intention? Are we supposed to hash out what our priorities are? Because there's no way we can get to even
No.
a third of this list.
No.
So what is the intention?
My advice and intention would be that we not get into the specifics and the weeds of any of these issues. What I would hope is that this be a forum and an opportunity for what Susanna just did, for example, which is to say, look, from my perspective, I think we should be focusing most principally on these 3 or 4 areas, right? So that and we go around the table and all of the trustees have the opportunity to give that feedback. And my hope would be that I'd be walking out of there and Ian, myself, Janice, and Dan would be walking out of there with a pretty good sense that, you know what? Hey guys, if you're going to drop the ball on anything, don't drop it on these things. I always like to put it that way. You're probably getting a sense of where I would be putting my priorities, but you're the board, right? So it's going to be kind of free flowing, and I would hope that every trustee would be given the opportunity to give their 2 cents on that list. And no, we don't need to do this. We don't need to do that. No, this is done, blah, blah, blah. This was just kind of a brain dump on my part.
Okay, thanks.
We can't hear you, Ian.
How complete does everybody feel this list is?
I think the paper would explode if you added one more item.
So there's nothing burning in your mind that's missing?
No.
Eve or Ted, and you feel anything's missing?
Well, each
No.
one of these issues is humongous. I mean, not everyone, but there are many on here that are going to take weeks and months of planning and research and all the rest. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Which means there's going to be a bunch of this stuff that doesn't get done before conversion.
no.
And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make the list longer if there's more stuff that needs to be considered, right? Because we want to make sure that we do find the real priorities. My personal sense is this is a pretty good list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it's quite adequate.
Yeah. So everybody in agreement, we should do this next week?
Oh, yeah.
3 hours, we're gonna have to be efficient. We're gonna have to stay out of the weeds.
Yeah, for sure. So, Mr. Chairman, my intention, as I said, would be to, I'll send you a little agenda with this list attached. It'll be very short, nothing more than that. Send it out to you tomorrow and send out the Zoom invitation and ask that, Janice and Janice, we post it on the website as soon as possible, so that the public is aware of this meeting and they be given an opportunity to log in if they want to join.
Fantastic. Any motion required to make this meeting a reality, or do we just say not just make it so?
No, I don't think a motion is required. We'll just proceed.
Take
Fantastic.
it so.
Make
Can
it
I
so.
ask, I think this is item 7. Can I ask the board's thoughts on my suggestion to invite Carol to attend as someone who has prior knowledge that none of us have? And
I will defer for now. Is there Eve or Ted or Gary, do you have thoughts on this topic?
I'm fine with Carol coming, absolutely.
or at least being invited. She might not be able to come.
Ted?
Yeah, she has input. Again, she was a chairman Union Bay for a number of years and probably has knowledge that most of us do not have. I have no problem.
I'll speak and then I'll ask Gary for his thoughts. Well, like I have zero issues with Carol attendance and I would very much value her input. It does beg the question that says, who else then has similar knowledge that might be equally qualified or have a desire to be present as well. And then at what point does it get unwieldy? If we were to go back through all past chairs, for example, that are still in Union Bay and want to have a comment, would we need to invite all of them? So I recognize that Carol is highly qualified to contribute to this, but I wonder if it then opens Pandora's box, if you will, as to who else we have to invite. But now that's my only comment on it, and I'd ask Gary for his thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, I actually think it's a decent idea. She's the public representative on the conversion working group. So I think that puts her, I think that's a very valid reason why she should be, invited to this particular meeting and be given an opportunity to provide some input if she has it. Of course, she'll look at the website, she'll get she'll see the Zoom invitation anyway, but I can certainly send her an email and just bring it to her attention. But I have no problem, and I think it kind of makes sense given the fact that she's on the conversion working group, which is one of the biggest items on that list.
Thank you for that. And so when, Susanna, when you proposed Carol attending, it was on that basis of contribute but not vote? Is that kind of how you
Oh,
spelled
of course. Yeah, no one can vote other than the trustees. And like Gary said, I specifically chose Carol because she's on the conversion committee.
Okay. We've all expressed ourselves. So, to me, that would require a motion or a vote to say invite Carol. Do you agree, Gary?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so motion to include Carol Molstad or invite Carol Molstad to participate but not vote at our upcoming strategic planning and prioritization session.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Done? Okay. Susanna, you'd also asked to speak of the water leak correspondence that each of us received. Let us not mention names as we speak about this, because there's a privacy issue that comes with that. You know, essentially we've been, I don't know if everybody's seen it, but there's been an email. Gary, I'm not sure yes, you have seen it. I forwarded it to you. There was questions asked about why we rescinded the policy. Left to devices, generally speaking, landowner questions are sent to the board, and the chair responds to the landowner, or the administrator responds to the landowner. And you know, I was intending to do that. What I'd done was asked Gary there was a part of the email asked for the word was statistics. And so I'd asked for numbers that were associated with it. I think I asked for dollar values, but it would probably be also behoove us to say the number of water leak credits that we gave out. And I would answer the email from this perspective that we gave as we decided, which in my recollection was the water leak policy was established when we implemented water meters to help ease the burden or the blow or the fear factor, if you will, of I'm going to be metered for all my water now. The second thing that I recall from our debate was the cost of water has gone up now that we have a much more robust infrastructure in place, and so there is more of a cost to us in terms of having those credits issued. The third reason I recall was, that we felt that there was an unfairness, if you will, to ask all landowners to bear the costs of a subset of landowners' infrastructure failures, like private infrastructure failures. And then the fourth reason I remember was it's reasonably unique to Union Bay, and that other areas of the valley, such as Comox and Courtney, do not have such a thing as a leak leak credit bylaw. So that was what I would have communicated. And if there's further debate or input required here, would love to hear what you have to say, or if you'd prefer a different approach. Go ahead, Susanna.
I raised this issue because, first of all, I was very glad to see a landowner question come forward. Just in general, it's really great that the landowners feel comfortable in asking us questions. And I just had a thought, and I believe that our cow meeting in November is where we discussed this, and we had a very thorough discussion on the pros and cons of doing this. It was not a decision we took lightly. So my suggestion was, would it be possible to clip the audio, the section of the meeting, because that would in fact answer, in my opinion, the very, very valid questions that the land, not clip, but do you understand?
Snip it out,
Yeah, and send it to them so that they can see the rationale and the discussion that took place. That was all I was going to add.
Okay. Or we could just point them to go open this video at, 1 hour and 20 minutes in, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Any other thoughts?
Mr. Chair, regarding these leaks that occur to people, times if it's on the Union Bay side of the meter, that's one thing. Running to their abode, it's up to them to keep it in good condition. If all of a sudden it's leaking, hopefully they're home and hopefully they call to get the water shut off and get it repaired as soon as possible. It's responsibility of the homeowner. There are people that I have down this way that they have property here, but they don't live here. They only come up during the winter skiing season and parts of the summer. So my suggestion is, people, if they're going to be away from that property for more than so many weeks, they should be calling the improvement district to shut the water off at the source so that they're not going to be worried about a hot water tank letting go or something that's going to cause them a lot of money.
Thank you. Eve, any thoughts on this one?
No, I'm good with Susanna's suggestion as well as your response as you commented, Ian.
Awesome, thank you. So we've reached the end of the business portion of the agenda. As this is a regular board meeting and we do have members of the public, I think it would be appropriate to ask if I think there's 2 members of the public still in attendance. There are 2. If there are any questions to be asked, and Gary, that would probably require that you unmute those 2 people and we can ask if there are any questions. I will just call by name. Mary, do you have any, oh, Mary on mute? No. Mary, do you have any questions? I think that's a great question, and certainly been made aware of that work, and I have made the board aware of that work. Only the summary information I've been given so far. And I think that this is a really good topic for discussion at our strategic planning session as well, is to say, you know, what are the options? Is it something that we will do ourselves before conversion, or will this be one that gets turned over to CVRD to say, do you want to make the process more efficient? But the information that I've seen opened my eyes to say that there's some things that I hadn't heard at the board level yet. So I appreciate that. We should have them. You're right. You may. There is one other person on here, but if you have one more question, and then we can move to the other person and then come back if you'd like. What's your question? I'm not, I don't know if anybody else has more information as to why this sludge is. Right. And so I don't know the answer as to why it's not acceptable at the dump now. If I was speculating, it was because of the chemical content in that sludge. There's the, forget what it is, aluminum hydroxide or something like that, isn't it? That's used to precipitate the sediment out of the water. But there's certainly, I remember the comment, Mary, for sure. And I know it was CVRD in that comment. It's a good question. We can ask Danny that question. And Gary, may I pass that one to you?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I believe that, well, Dan has been invited to attend the strategic planning session on Tuesday. And I have had a discussion with him about issues related to sludge. He talked to me about some of the financial impacts, the dollars involved. Trustee Kelger's question, I think he should be in a position to answer that question. My understanding, and again, I'm not an engineer, but my understanding is that the CVRD does not, they have a policy not to permit that material to be taken to the landfill.
And so Mary's question is about a specific comment that was made at our last board meeting where, which I do recall, is that upon conversion, CVRD may be more amenable to the sludge going to the dump. And the question really is not about will they be, but why does Dan believe that? Does he have any evidence for that, or is it speculation?
Well, I can certainly ask Dan that question.
Be valid input to our planning next week as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you. Now Bruce is still on mute. I don't know if Bruce has any questions.
And Mr. Chairman, I've been unable to, I managed to unmute Mary, but I can't unmute Bruce. It won't.
He may have muted himself then.
Okay.
Okay. Mary, any other questions? So the question is Dan the one that goes and gets quotes and does those sorts of things? Typically speaking, Janice, I'll let you answer how this process works, but my understanding is that subject matter experts are involved when we go out and do tenders, right? So that they make sure that the technical requirements are fulfilled. And that as long as technical requirements are met by all participants, then lowest cost bidder rules, right? Janice, do you have any further to add to that? Or?
I mean, basically, Dan's the public works superintendent. That is a function of public works. So it's logical that he would price out the cost of removal.
Right. That Dan does it? The board approves the spending of the money. If it is capital related, the board approves a budget for operating expenses on an annual basis. And then the administration is responsible both for forming capital requests that the board then approves. And the administration is responsible for operating the improvement district and staying within the budget. And that's my impression. Gary, I would ask for your comments on that as well.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, Janice is absolutely right. It's from my perspective, it's totally logical. He's the public works superintendent. He's the department head. He deals with these operational issues in the field. He deals with the contractors. He obviously knows the financial impacts of these services that are being provided. It's basically his functional area.
Yes. That was not, as my understanding of that process, that was not a Dan decision. I was not on the board at the time. My understanding is that the washroom and office facility was not included in the tender for the plant. It was not a part of what was to be built, and that it was to be dealt with separately. And that portion did not happen. Susanna, you were on the board at the time. Did I get that right?
The reality that the washroom and office were not attached is in fact true. However, there was never any discussion of even about including, which is ridiculous, about including a washroom and a staff room ever.
It was not brought to the attention of the board, and then the board didn't raise it.
No, which is, you know, in hindsight, ludicrous. Also, I have to say, though, we did publish publicly the plans, and that issue was never raised by anyone else either. Meaning, the landowners or previous board members. So, it was, really a dumb move in hindsight. Going back to Mary's question about the sludge removal, I just understood at this meeting that it was clarified that a tender was never done for that.
To the
Did I
best of
miss-
anybody's knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
there was probably just an award of a contract that was made,
yeah,
which perhaps should have been tendered.
yes, thank you. Yeah, big mistake, which is really embarrassing that there is no washroom and storage. Not so much storage, and this, I think Quinsam hut could handle storage better than a full-on building, but that's going to be discussed at our strategic planning. And I really feel for the staff. They're in a very difficult situation. So I don't know what to say. We blew it on that.
Did that answer the questions, Mary? So, what we can do is move forward from here, right? And say, what do we have to do? Yeah. Thank you, Mary. All right, so if there are no other questions, then we have arrived at the end of the agenda. We've concluded in the agenda notice of the next regular board meeting to be on Thursday, February the 19th at 2:30.
It's the 18th, not the 19th.
18th.
18th? Yeah, okay. I don't have a calendar right in front of me, so.
Oh, okay, thank you. February 18th at 2:30. I haven't transferred to a new calendar either, thank you. Actually, maybe, could we just run through, what's the March meeting? Is it
It's the third
is
Thursday.
the 18th as well? Yeah,
Third
third Thursday, okay.
Yeah.
2:30.
Okay, so motion to adjourn.
I shall move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody, and thanks to those of the public that sat through this with us. Take
Thank
care,
you. Good night.
all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.